play the Houston Astros.
Well, we're used to showing you the games at spring training, but so much of what happens in February and March happens away from the stadium. So we figured we'd take you outside. It's about 10:45 in the morning right now, and Mike Vassell is doing his bullpen session down below us. This is what spring training is all about. The exhibition games are kind of icing on the cake, but the work in the early morning is really what the flavor of spring training is.
You know, baseball is such a strange sport. I mean, hope springs eternal, all of that stuff. But when you come down here, it's polar opposite of what the season is like. When you play games during the regular season, you get to the park, whatever, do what you have to do, but the game is the most important thing. Here, the work is the most important thing. I'm getting a little nostalgic because this mound right behind me used to have Darling and Gooden and Fernandez. 36 years ago, we used to throw off the same mound. It's changed a lot here, but the work is basically the same.
And what about changing your body clock? Because you mentioned the nocturnal nature of baseball during the spring. You got guys coming in at 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning here, getting their work done by noon. How does that work in terms of your body clock?
Well, I honestly think as you get closer to the end of spring training, there should be more night games to get you more acclimated to the season schedule. But I think it's just a tradition. Baseball has great traditions, and one of them is they get here early, get your work in. You'll see guys in the tub, you'll see guys on the treadmill, all of the things that you would see maybe at a health club or whatever. It is full go early in the morning to try to get ready for practice.
And of course, the reason why we have spring training in Florida and in Arizona is because it's warm, it's sunny, it's 70 degrees, whereas back home it's 35. And then you leave spring training and you go and you play in 40-degree temperatures. That's got to be a shock.
Well, it's the whole thing about playing baseball is that at some point, the weather could be anywhere from 80 degrees to 40 degrees. So you kind of deal with it. But it certainly is a shock. You get really accustomed to the life down here. It's very simple. It's very easy. And then you're thrown from Port St. Lucie to Manhattan. That's a big change for anyone. That's a big change in the game as well.
What's the best and worst part of being in spring training as a player?
Well, the best part of the spring training, and the part that I wax nostalgic about, is a chance to be around your buddies again and to think about, is this our year? This could be the year that this whole group of men become world champions. And the worst part of it, I think, is that it's too long. For most players, I think 3 to 4 weeks seems like the right time. This is 6 to 7 weeks now. So by the middle of March, right after St. Patrick's Day, you say to yourself, boy, I need to go to New York City.
Well, we're still more than a month from opening day as the Mets get set to play the Astros today, and hope this has given you a little taste of what it's like behind the scenes in spring. We'll be back with Mets baseball in a moment.
New York Mets baseball on Pix 11 is brought to you by Northwell, raising health for more New Yorkers with cancer than anyone. And by your local Chevy dealers. Visit ChevyOffers.com. From limited edition bobbleheads to exclusive Mets merchandise, there's something for everyone this season. Check out the Mets 2024 promotions schedule at Mets.com/promotions. Rolling down the hill, not included. On the mound for the Mets today, Jose Butto, who's battling for a spot in the Mets rotation. And a lot of guys trying to find a spot in the bullpen, including Cole Sulser, Austin Adams, Johan Ramirez, Danny Young. They've all had some big league experience. Beautiful day in Port St. Lucie. Come on back. Some pictures from spring training. Love the stop action of the ball about to hit the net. Oh, that's a great photograph. Stretching always important before going to work. Good to see that guy.
Wow.
Look at the flexibility of his body. He looked great, by the way, in Live BP the other day. I mean, he had the hitters flummoxed.
I saw some shots from behind while Pete was up at the plate.
He threw him 3 sliders in a row, missed with one, Pete flailed at the other 2, and then he beat him upstairs with a fastball. It was just not so great for Pete, but a thing of beauty to see Edwin Diaz back doing that again. Now the kids out on the berm catching some rays. Make sure not to skimp on the sunscreen today. There is not a cloud to be seen anywhere. A light breeze blowing across from left toward right. 71 degrees as we get set for game number 2 of the preseason schedule. There's Francisco Alvarez making his first appearance of the spring, beginning his sophomore campaign. No transfer portal here.
There's a little NIL money, though.
There's a little money. Jose Butto making the start for the Mets this afternoon.
Yeah, Gary, 9 times he was on the mound for the Mets last year. 7 of those starts, a fine ERA at 3.64. You remember he came up the year prior, was not ready or did not pitch as well as he could, but last year he made a big improvement.
The Astros lineup, not a familiar one, brought to you by Spectrum One. Not a single starting player and maybe 2 guys on the opening day roster, Caratini and Julks. But circle the guy in the 3-hole. That's Will Wagner, son of Billy, playing third base for the Astros today.
No names on the jerseys for the Travelers.
Well, the team that has been to the postseason 7 straight years and won the AL West 6 of those 7 years with 2 World Series titles along the way. Not present today. They've got a split squad game with another game back in West Palm Beach. They've got a new manager this year in Joe Espada, who had been the bench coach for both A.J. Hinch and Dusty Baker. Dusty took it to the house, and Espada now gets his first crack as a big league skipper.
Well, defense for the Mets, we already, brought to you by Toyota, highlighted Alvarez. A couple of guys that I'll highlight, Vientos is in there. Beatty did a nice job in yesterday's game. Yolmer Sanchez, the second baseman, had a gold glove in the White Sox in 2019. Tyrone Taylor, outstanding athlete in center field.
And did you mention that the word at the position between second and third is not a placeholder? That is actually the name of our shortstop today. Zach Short is playing short. Kennedy Corona leads off for the Astros, former Met farmhand, and it takes the first pitch inside from Butto, and we're underway. Corona was dealt from the Mets after the 2019 season and the deal that brought the Mets Jake Marisnick. Remember Jake Marisnick? He had trouble staying on the field during his Mets tenure.
He did.
Terrific defensive outfielder. Kennedy Corona last year played in single A and double A ball. He had 22 home runs and stole 32 bases. For Butto, last year, getting an opportunity to start late in the season after the Mets dealt Scherzer and Verlander away, his success against lefties was spectacular because of his changeup. Still has to figure out how to get the righties out.
Yeah, well, that breaking ball is still a work in progress, although it was much better last year. We'll see how he progresses with that pitch here in this first game.
Chopper past the glove of Vientos, deep in the hole. It's short is short, and he throws out Corona for the first out.
Boy, that was a fine play by Short. Going into the hole, what does he do here? Gets rid of it quickly. A little sidearm throw. Gets there in plenty of time. Good way to start if you're a pitcher. Good defensive play.
Victor Caratini, the DH, bats second in the order. Ronnie, when I first got the job broadcasting for the Mets, I interviewed with Frank Cashin, because at that time the position as the radio broadcaster for the Mets was a team position. So Frank had the final say as to whether I would be signed. Good change up there by Butto. And he said, I only have one requirement of broadcasters on the radio, and that is when you say where the ball is hit, tell me what position it's hit to instead of the name of the player it's hit to, so I can visualize it in my mind.
Wow.
If every player was like Zach Short, it would make the job so much easier.
That's right.
You could never get that wrong.
It's kind of a who's on first kind of deal, right? He's not a local kid, but Ulster County kid, right?
Kingston. He grew up as a Mets fan. Yeah, right? Kingston. He was at the 2000 World Series, as a matter of fact, as a fan. Then went to Sacred Heart, where Bobby Valentine was the athletic director.
That's
so
right.
he's got lots of Mets in his blood. Caratini goes down on strikes and a high fastball by Butto. Dialed that one up to 95, and there were 2 out.
Well, when he first came up, when we saw him, he spent most of the time down in the strike zone. So it's nice to see Butto elevating that fastball, threw it right by Caratini.
Now here is Will Wagner. Will's dad came just shy of getting voted into the Hall of Fame this winter, and next year in his final year of eligibility, I think everybody's expecting Billy to get over the top.
4 votes short.
Will Wagner was a guy who was not considered a great prospect coming out of Liberty University. 18th round pick, doesn't have great tools, but he has insinuated himself into the conversation for a big league job. Battled wrist surgery last year, but still hit .337 in the minor leagues. And he flies this one out to shallow center. Ranging in is Tyrone Taylor, but he's not going to get there. Neither is Short. And Will Wagner has a well-placed base hit.
Well, the hardest, one of the hardest plays for a center fielder is a big full swing from the hitter, and the ball only drops in front of him. Scott had the best chance at it because sometimes the center fielder can't hear the contact. That contact was not great by Wagner.
Short made quite an effort to get out there. He went a long way. Not a short distance. So now 2 out and Wagner at first. And here's Corey Julks. And if you were watching when the Mets went to Houston last season, you'll remember Corey Julks. Part-time player with the Astros last year, but he had a great series against the Mets. Played in only 2 of the 3 games and went 4 for 8 and drove in a couple of runs.
I really like Julks. I think he has a real good chance to be a good hitter for the Astros. Michael Brantley no longer there. He might get some more playing time.
Even without Brantley, the Astros are just overloaded with outfielders. They're going to give Jake Myers the center field job this year. Move Chas McCormick to left. Of course, they have Kyle Tucker in right. Yordan Alvarez plays the outfield some. He's the DH most of the time. And their backup, Mauricio Dubon, won a Gold Glove last year as the utility player. There's not much room at the end. Slider off the plate, and he held it in time. Ramon de Jesus with the call, 2-1. Hey, did we find out who our 4th umpire is today?
I didn't. It said TBD, so that's what I put in.
So Thomas Bradley Davidson.
There you go. Tommy Davidson, comedian. Make for a good show.
Related to Pete.
Right.
Wagner, not much speed at first. He's running, and Julks pops one foul. Alvarez coming back for a look, but that's back in the crowd. Well, the Astros last year made it to the American League Championship Series for the 7th straight year. They had a 3-2 lead in the ALCS before Texas won the final 2 games and wound up winning the World Series, despite the best efforts of Yordan Alvarez, who had a 1487 OPS in the postseason last year. 1487.
They last year had an interesting year. They were going to cruise in, and then they went 6-17 in their final 23 home games that made it close.
Well, it turned that entire AL West into quite the battle. The 3 teams, Texas, Seattle, and Houston, all with a chance to the final weekend. And Julks flies a slider out to center field, and Tyrone Taylor, looking through the sunglasses, is there to grab it. That retires the side. Butto gives up a hit, strands him. Outstanding. Chapeau. Mets lineup brought to you by your Tri-State Audi dealers. Different look than we had yesterday. Alvarez getting his first start of the spring. Vientos, the only guy who's been in both lineups. He DH'd yesterday, playing third base today. Luke Voigt had a hit off the bench in that first game. And here's Brandon Bielak, who might be a starter, might be a reliever for the Astros this year.
Yeah, his numbers last year. Notre Dame, drafted in 2017, more importantly, from Sayreville, New Jersey.
Went to St. Joe's of Metuchen, and then on to Notre Dame. It's Tyrone Taylor, the former Brewer. And he hits it sharply past the glove of Machado at short. And Taylor's got a base hit to lead off the bottom of the first.
Well, he's a good-looking player. Whenever you saw him in a Milwaukee uniform, always hit the ball hard. He's got a lot of power, great athletic talent. His problem was staying on the field. Injuries cost him some serious time. And here's his side swing. You can see that power from the ground up from Taylor. BB up the middle.
Only 231 at-bats last year because of injury. Here's Francisco Alvarez, freshly turned 22 years old. .25 home runs last year. Only Johnny Bench had more as a 21-year-old catcher. It was an odd year for Alvarez offensively. Hot streaks, cold streaks, hot streaks, cold streaks. Played more than he ever had before, and this year he's hoping for a little more consistency.
Yeah, and especially against left-handed pitching. Kind of dried up for him versus the lefties. But that is what happens to young players, especially young players that have to concentrate defense first.
Pops one up on foul ground. Gittins, the first baseman, looking for it, and then it's back on the dugout roof. Hard to catch the ball in your hat. As much as you think that the hat is going to secure the ball, it's a hard catch to make.
You have to give with it, Garrett. You have to give a little bit with it. You know, just once you're about to catch it, just drop the hat about 3-4 inches. Makes it a soft landing.
Same way you catch it with your bare hand.
That's right.
Alvarez takes a rip, and it's 2-2. Well, there you see the up and down nature of Alvarez's season. 1 month cold, 1 month hot. It's funny because his August began so well. Remember, right after the trading deadline, the first game in Kansas City, he hit that go-ahead home run in the 10th inning, and then the Mets lost in the bottom of the 10th on a balk, and that began an 0-6 road trip right after the trading deadline. Taylor gets a great jump, and he steals the base with no pushback. 9 steals in 9 tries last year for Taylor, and he got an enormous jump against Bielak.
Again, we were talking about this yesterday, that with the clock winding down, pitchers aren't able to make the adjustment. We've seen a lot of those uncontested stolen bases.
It's almost as though it shortens the pitch clock if you have a runner on base. In other words, you might have 5, 4, 3 seconds left, but you got to get rid of it. Off the glove of the third baseman, Wagner. Taylor will pull in at third, and Alvarez has himself an infield hit. And the Mets have runners at the corners with nobody out.
Well, the ball hit hard, had a lot of topspin. Wagner just off the end of his glove. Would have been a very difficult play. But getting a piece of it stopped Tyrone from scoring.
So first and third, and nobody out. And now Ji-Man Choi, who was a late signing by the Mets. Choi, another entrant into that DH conversation. Mets also brought in Luke Voigt, along with Mark Vientos and DJ Stewart. They appear to be in some form what the Mets will put up there at DH.
Had his best year for the Rays in 2019 when he contributed 19 home runs. He's got some serious power.
An 822 OPS that year. Last year he missed 4 months of the season with an Achilles injury, so he had only limited playing time with the Pirates and the Padres and didn't hit much when he was active.
Likes the ball down. Good breaking ball hitter.
Ji-Man Choi, now 32 years old, in his 7th major league season. In 2020 with the Rays, he became the first Korean-born player ever to play in the World Series. He's also the only Korean-born player ever to switch hit home runs in the same game. He used to be a switch hitter. Now he's only a left-hand hitter. So he can't even do it again. Mark Vientos on deck, and Choi hits a chopper to second. Whitcomb gets the out at second, and the relay to first in time for the double play as Taylor comes in to score the first run of the game, and it's 1-0 New York. 4-6-3 double play, no RBI. So the Mets turn a couple of hits on a stolen base into a run. And now here is Vientos. He played yesterday and went 1 for 2, had an opposite field hit, and became our first in-game player interview of the spring.
I give him an A+. We were about C-.
Well,
the questions weren't great.
You know, they've been at spring training longer than we have. I think the players are ahead of the broadcast.
By far. You know, Gary, I forgot that Vientos, what kind of spring training he had in 2023. 15 hits. Hard to replicate that back to back.
And he continued that into the minor league season. He had a tremendous start to his year before his call-up, and then had limited playing time when he was called up, which kind of put a roadblock into his season. And 2-2 to Vientos. Brandon Bielak, a guy who was being treated like a starting pitcher this spring, but might well be a multiple inning reliever out of the Astros bullpen. They have to figure out what they're going to do with him because he's out of options, and he's the kind of talent that if they tried to pass him through waivers, somebody would pick him off. And Vientos chops one out to short. Dixon Machado makes the toss, and that retires the side. Mets scratch out a run on the first and lead it 1-0 after 1. Well, Francisco Alvarez had a base hit in his first at bat of the spring. He spoke with Steve Gelbs the other day about the difference this year to last.
Last year is no, I think it's a good year, but it's not like very good year. I learned a lot, and the difference is sometimes when I go into hit, I slow the game down a lot. Also, and sometimes when I go into hit, I go in very fast, and I think that one is what I want to learn this year. Like every at bat have to be like very similar.
Slow the game down, right? Is that what everybody wants to do?
He said a couple of really interesting things there, and doing it in English, bravo.
Yeah.
Bravo, Mr. Alvarez. That's amazing. He said a couple interesting things there. It's hard to organically slow the game down, right? So what you want to do is what he said at the end. He wants every at-bat to be taken in the same way. He wants his process to be the same, and every time he goes up there, and then he'll live with what the result.
Well, you can only imagine the sky being the limit for Francisco Alvarez off what we've seen in his year plus in the major leagues.
Well, I think, when you look at it, we just had Mark Vientos up. He's thinking of taking his at-bats, playing some third, DHing. This young man has to catch the pitching staff, has to know the complete game plan, all of those things, and then take the equipment off and take a good at-bat. Not that easy.
And he made unbelievable strides defensively last year to the point where he was up amongst the elite in pitch framing last year.
So maybe what happened last year is he's put so much hard work into making himself a really good defensive player that he might not, and I'm not saying work, he probably did the same kind of work, but not as much attention to detail to his hitting because that always came so naturally to him.
Pedro Leon facing Jose Buto, and he gets one off the fist into shallow right field. Yolmer Sanchez backing up, called off by Alex Ramirez, and Ramirez has it one away. Well, Buto's retired 4 of the first 5. The only marker against him was a bloop single. And now Chris Gittens, who had a brief spell as a Yankee back in 2021. In 16 games. Last year was in Japan, and he drills one to left field, but right at Ben Gamble, another former Yankee, who has it for the second out. Good exit velo.
Outstanding exit velo.
Expected batting average 900. Actual batting average.
Kind of fooled Gamble there a little bit. He had to pick it off the turf at the last second.
So 2 out and nobody on. Now a guy who by his name should be a Met, Shea Whitcomb.
Yeah, if his parents were bad spellers, I guess.
Well, Whitcomb hit 35 home runs in the minor leagues last year. Not bad for a middle infielder. He goes after changeup and misses, and it's 0-2. He was the last pick in the draft in 2020, which is not as bad as it sounds, because in 2020 there were only 5 rounds in the draft. What in football they refer to as Mr. Irrelevant, as that one goes over his head.
Brock Purdy.
Exactly. So you can get to the big time as Mr. Irrelevant.
And that's got to be uncomfortable. First at bat, ball right over your head.
Seemed unfazed.
Yeah.
See if Budo goes with the slider away to test him. Now he tried to front door it and just missed with it, and it's 2-2.
Whitcomb also had 30 stolen bases last year, so power and speed.
Moving over 100 runs in the minor leagues, that's hard to do. Full count to Whitcomb. Second full count of the inning for Buto, whose results in the minor leagues were not very good last year, but he pitched very well coming down the stretch of the season when he finally got an opportunity to start regularly. That's line to left. That one's going to fall in front of Gamble for a base hit. Kind of got it off the end of the bat, and Whitcomb has the second Houston hit.
Well, Buto is a strike thrower, so he got deep in the count here and just wanted to challenge Whitcomb. And like you said, not perfect contact, but a nice base hit to left field.
So 2 out, a runner aboard. We'll see if Whitcomb tries to swipe one. Here's Dixon Machado, who has plenty of big league experience. Ooh. Another open-in fastball from Buto. Machado spent 4 years in Detroit, a year in San Francisco. You know, Alvarez has tried to clean up his ability to control the running game. Last year he threw from his knees quite a bit. And he said something that I'm not quite sure I completely understand. He said, I'm going to be down on one knee, but if I see the guy is going, as that ball goes through the hole, a base hit for Machado, and there are 2 men on. He said, if I see the guys running, I'll be up on my foot. So I'm not sure whether he's saying that he's going to change his stance in mid-flow, or whether he's going to try and not throw from his knees.
That sounds like 22-year-old knees, if you can change the stance from one knee down up onto your tippy toes. But I think what happened to Alvarez last year, Gary, and I know you remember this, just he had so many uncontested stolen bases that the pitchers weren't able to hold him close enough. They were on their way, and he tried to play catch-up. How many times did he try to transfer the ball from the glove to his hand and never could get that transfer because he was trying to do it too quickly?
Well, I think that's why he ended up throwing for his knees so much, because it took that piece of, you know, getting yourself elevated. The guy I thought who did it best last year was another rookie, Patrick Bailey of the Giants, was able to get from a knee and somehow get his momentum going up the chute towards second base. That's why he was so successful.
You know, watching Patrick Bailey last year was like watching Thurman Munson, because not only would he get up quick, but he would throw wherever he got the ball. He'd throw it sidearm, overhand, whatever way, just trying to get rid of it as quickly as he could.
Now C.J. Stubbs, the catcher and number 9 hitter, he takes up an in-ball 1. Stubbs played Double-A, Triple-A last year, 203 with 14 home runs. Butto trying to work around a couple of 2-out hits. Misses inside, and it's 2-0.
Saw Hefner come out. He came out yesterday a couple of times. I think when he sees his pitchers in a long inning, he's trying to give them a blow here early in spring training.
Well, the plan was for the starters to go 2 innings, 30 pitches first time out. Both McGill and now Butto have blown by that 30-pitch aspiration as Whitcomb gets his hand back in on the pickoff try. McGill wound up throwing 38 pitches in his outing, and Butto now up to 36. And check swing on the slider, and now he's behind 3-0. And you know, first outing of the spring, you wonder at what point the fatigue factor starts taking over.
Well, it's fatigue, but also I think, and I could never do what the pitchers today do, they're coming in throwing 3 pitches in their first start. That makes it difficult as well to have control in your first outing in spring of 3 pitches. And why are they there? They do a lot more work in the winter, and they also are trying to compete for a job.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, if you're a veteran pitcher, you can afford to get hit around just trying to work on stuff. Short gets the out the short way. 1-0 Mets. Well, we showed you a little of the behind-the-scenes stuff in spring training earlier. This is some of the infield work that is going on before the game today.
Just see
Alonso and Francisco Lindor.
Gary, did you see Pete? He was using a small infielder's glove to field balls at first.
Yeah, he does that almost all the time during infield drills. I think it's a good thing in terms of training his hands to field ground balls, but you want to get the feeling of digging the ball out of the bigger mid as well, right?
Yes. I mean, that's the kind of glove a shortstop or second baseman would use.
Luke Voit leads off for the Mets in the bottom of the second. New pitcher, A.J. Blumbaugh, promptly plunks Voit with a curveball. And that's how the second inning begins for the Mets, with a leadoff base runner.
It's an irritable look from Voit.
Well, if he can get hit by pitches, he'll fit right in with this group. Now Ben Gamel is playing left field today. There's A.J. Blumbaugh, starter for most of the season last year. Threw that fastball by Gamel, and it's 1-1. Ben Gamel, now 31 years old, trying to make his 7th different major league team. First drafted by the Yankees out of high school in Jacksonville in 2010. And a double play ball right at the bag. The backhand flip to Whitcomb, and the throw to first is not in time. Gamel still with good speed, able to beat that out, as that was very slow developing. And so it's a 6-4 fielder's choice for the first out.
Nice play, though, by the shortstop here. This ball hit up the middle, hits on the back of the mound. Took a little funny hop there, and he stayed with it. And with the backhand toss, got the force out at second base.
So Gamel at first, Zach Short the batter. We saw Short with the Tigers last year, and about 220 at bats with Detroit last season. Hit .204 with 7 home runs. Originally drafted by the Cubs out of Sacred Heart in 2016. And short flies went out to right. Chasing back Leon onto the warning track. And he's there to grab it, 2 out. Well, we'll be looking forward to welcoming Mets President of Baseball Operations David Stearns to the booth in the 4th inning. Get some of his thoughts about his first year building the team. He's been on the job for, about 5 months now?
The hardest part is there's only 100 questions we have to ask him. We'll try to streamline it down to 3 or 4 or whatever.
You don't think we're going to be able to ask all 100?
I don't think so.
Well, it depends. There are some who in that situation, I'm going to leave names out of this, would talk for long enough and filibuster to the point where you couldn't get the second question.
That's true. That is true. That's an art.
Yolmer Sanchez takes a strike and it's 0-2. I mean, there's a skill to that.
100%. I mean, there's some filibustering that comes from this booth at times as well.
It's part of our charm. By the way, I meant to ask you, did Keith text you during the game yesterday? Was he actually watching?
He did text me. He texted me a couple of times. He had a kind of a comment about the home plate umpire at one point, but he was watching. He had to be watching. So
at least for an inning or two.
Yeah,
the dirt, and Gamble takes off for second and makes it safely. Stubbs with a good block, but Gamble with the dirt ball read and takes second on the wild pitch. Oh, so there's the ceremony last night for the Pacifica Sports Hall of Fame. And that's Gary's Keith's brother Gary, second from the left. And a swing and a miss, and Sanchez down on strikes, and the inning is over.
I think that's where Keith got the merits in that classroom at some point.
Need to get a when you come down here to Florida and you talk to people who live here, all they talk about is pickleball.
Oh, my goodness.
And, I've never actually participated in the fastest growing sport in the nation, but it looks like the most boring exercise imaginable.
Well, on that one shot, he had to bend over all the way, so he couldn't get there. The research and development in pickleball, could you please get a ball that doesn't sound like that plastic sound? It's terrible.
Could you give me a rendition of what it sounds like?
Oh,
is it a thwack?
Not a thwack.
Is it a ping?
You want some onomatopoeia here.
I'm looking for a little guidance.
It's like fingernails on a crock.
Really?
Yes, at some point. Can't take it.
Like that?
Yes.
Well, that's not good.
And forever, because
that's not good at all.
Because the lob thing, the whole.
Nobody.
Here you go, Gary. Listen. I mean,
yeah, it's kind of thwacky.
You know what that sounds like? My hitting career as a major league player. That's what it sounded when the ball hit the bat.
It looks like nobody ever misses. So you get a continuous. It's not like at Wimbledon. There's a swing and a miss by Corona, and he's down on strike. It's not like at Wimbledon where it's serve, ace.
That's right.
Right. Little tennis clap. It's thwack, 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 thwack because everybody keeps hitting the ball
all day long, and then as soon as you're done, it's another reason to go have a beer and a chicken salad. I mean, that's really what it is.
Oh, and you can't play past 4 o'clock because then you miss the early bird special.
Got to be seated by 5:15.
No, that's the late seating. Victor Caratini up for the second time. Struck out his first time, and he shoots one up the middle for a base hit. Austin Adams, by the way, is on the mound for the Mets. Not playing pickleball, but actual baseball.
Looked like a little cutter here by Adams. Good pitch, better hit by Caratini. Caught it off the label, but still able to muscle into center field.
Adams has had big league time with the Nats, the Mariners, the Padres, the Diamondbacks. Last year, he was actually going pretty well, and then Jock Peterson hit a line drive off his ankle, broke it, ended his season. And those were his numbers, with 22 strikeouts in 17 innings for the University of South Florida product. And that's slugged out to center. Taylor a long way back, and he makes the catch. Tyrone Taylor is a really good outfielder. We've talked a lot about the Mets trying to shore up their defense, and Harrison Bader got most of the headlines with his acquisition, but Taylor can also play the outfield.
Well, we can see it on our shot there, is that when he saw the ball off the bat, he took his eyes off it, ran to a spot, and was right exactly where he needed to be.
I know when the ball left the bat, I thought it was going to beat him, but he beat the ball. So 2 out and a runner at first. Here's Corey Julks. Flied out to center his first time up, and he fouls back the fastball from Adams.
Now, I was thinking about all the analytics that help you acquire players. Sometimes it's as simple as coveting what you know. Right? David Stearns knows Tyrone Taylor and Hauser.
Got them both in trade for Coleman Crow, whom the Mets had gotten in a prior deal. Minor league pitcher. Fly ball out to right. And Alex Ramirez back in the gap to get it. So an easy inning for Austin Adams. A hit in the one left. He threw just 10 pitches. 1-0 Mets in the third. Well, we were talking yesterday about the free agents still out of the market. One came off the market late last night. Cody Bellinger re-signing with the Cubs, 3 years, $80 million. He has an opt-out after the first year and an opt-out after the second year. And so the former MVP back with the Cubs, for whom he had a bounce-back season last year.
Yeah, so if he has a similar year next year that he did in 2023, he will be a free agent again.
So if that's the case, if that happens, if he opts out next year, he will be a former most valuable player who will have been a free agent 3 consecutive years and still in his 20s.
Rookie of the Year, MVP, 3 times by age 28, a free agent.
Unbelievable.
Right?
Right.
Those are the guys you tie up.
You would think, but, you know, his performance after his MVP season and after he hurt his shoulder dipped so drastically that his value diminished. It increased last year with his production, but it took a while for he and the Cubs to arrive at the deal that they ultimately signed last night.
Listen, there isn't one team that wouldn't want Cody Bellinger.
Right, but
they want to see it again.
Right. Would you want to commit to 5 years of big money with him based on last year? Alex Ramirez played in yesterday's game and a couple of opposite field hits. Ramirez still just 21 years old. Had a rough year playing in Brooklyn last year. Just 221 with 7 home runs, but just watching him on the field, he just oozes athletic talent. And he takes a wide strike 3. Wow. Jacob Metz not showing a Mets bent behind the plate, and calling out Ramirez, 1 out. A.J. Blue Ball working his second inning in relief. That's his second strikeout. And now Tyrone Taylor, who got a base hit to lead off the first inning, stole a base and scored the only run of this game. And he takes a fastball for a strike. Our friend is back.
He is back.
His name is Jake, by the way. I got to meet him today.
You did?
I did. came over and said hi. He's a huge fan. And normally when you use the term leather lung, it generally bespeaks an older fan rolling out a constant barrage of loud sounds from the stands. Much too young to be a leather lung.
I don't know. His voice carries, though.
That's line to the left, and Taylor's got his second hit. So Tyrone Taylor having himself a nice day. Good catch in center, and now 2 for 2 at the plate.
Again, that side swing, so powerful and strong. His best year with Milwaukee, at 17 home runs in 2022 and only 373 at-bats.
There's Alvarez, who had a base hit off the third baseman's glove his first time up. You know, listening to our young friend Jake in the stands, and you talking about how his voice cuts through, it reminds me of what Bobby Valentine used to say. You know, people would get upset with Bobby sometimes because he said a lot of things in the dugout, and he said it's not so much that I say anything differently than anybody else, it's just that my voice carries and they can hear me.
I will tell you, though, it worked perfectly when he was the third base coach when I first came up to the big leagues. You could hear him from wherever you were running. Bobby's spending more time in California now, Gary.
Yes,
does
he
the
is.
pre and post for the California and Los Angeles Angels.
Of Anaheim, or somewhere in Southern California.
I get it wrong each and every time.
So I guess to say our friend Wayne Randazzo on a frequent basis. What's it going to be like for the Angels this year with no Ohtani?
No Ohtani. Trout is trying to stay on the field. You know, the last 5 seasons, Trout has missed over 50% of their games.
Right. I mean, it's crazy. For more than a decade now, they have had either the best or the 2 best players in baseball. And now one is gone and the other is diminished. And that's what they've hung their hat on, because they haven't won in all that time. They made the postseason once. That was 10 years ago, and they got swept. Alvarez out to right field, chasing Leon back near the fence, and it's out of here. Francisco Alvarez goes the other way. A 2-run homer, his first of the spring, to make it 3-0 New York.
Well, the first 2 games, it's been very friendly here to right field with the wind pushing the ball that way. But Alvarez has got tremendous power to all fields. Doesn't get this completely, but got it up high in the air. And it's just got in that stream and just out of the ballpark. Nice start to this game by both Taylor and Alvarez. It's nice to see him handling that high fastball. That's right at his numbers and away. But Francisco handles that pitch.
Last year, of his 25 home runs, only 4 went to right field. Everything else was from the left field line out to dead center. So it's 3-0 New York, and now Ji-Man Choi, who hit into a double play as a run came home his first time up.
Well, every hitter in the last 3-4 years we've done this job, Gary, been very vulnerable to the high fastball. You know the adjustment is coming. Every hitter in baseball is trying to do something to make sure that they get to that high pitch more than they have before.
Baseball is a game of cycles.
Yeah.
Right? There was a time when pitching down in the strike zone, throwing pitches at the knees, trying to get ground balls. What did Rick Peterson, the former Mets pitching coach, call it? The 170 line.
That's right.
So hitters adjusted, had more uppercut in their swing, started handling the low pitch, and then the high fastball became the vogue pitch. And now the adjustment is happening on the other end.
Well, last year the Braves, Matt Olson did the best job of it. He was a guy that was so vulnerable to the high pitch, changed his hands, got to that high pitch in a better way, and had a historic season.
Choi lays off, and that's ball 4. So G-Man Choi draws a 2-out walk. And now Mark Vientos will bat for the second time. Vientos bounced out to short his first time up. It's facing an Astros team that is sort of in transition, but sort of not, right? They transitioned from the veteran manager Dusty Baker to the younger Joe Espada. Michael Brantley is gone, but they re-signed Jose Altuve to what basically amounts to a lifetime contract that he's going to finish his career as an Astro. They still have Alex Bregman, at least for one more year. He becomes a free agent after this season.
No, the right fielder's a free agent as well after the season. Oh, 2 more years?
He's got 2 more.
Okay.
Tucker, yeah.
All right.
I mean, they have Justin Verlander at the top of their rotation. But there are a lot of questions in that rotation because Verlander and Ramon Valdez are coming back from surgery as Vientos finds a hole, and the Mets with 4 straight base runners. That was an 0-2 pitch, and Vientos just able to sneak it through the left side. The biggest move that they made, biggest acquisition they made, was to bring in Josh Hader to strengthen what is already an outstanding bullpen.
Yeah, that pushes Ryan Presley out of that closer, but that makes them much deeper in the bullpen.
Well, with, Abreu and Rafael Montero, I mean, they've got a lot of arms. Pitching change for the Astros. Mets lead at 3-0 in the third. We'll be right back. They call those cigarette boats?
Yes. Fly.
The shape. Edwin Diaz doing some agility drills. Next few days are going to be big for Edwin. He has not yet fielded bunts, covered first base. That's the next step in his process, coming back from ACL surgery.
Those little workouts are just almost as important as he throwing to get that knee in the right place.
The throwing is fine.
Yeah.
From what we've seen in spring so far, he looks like himself on the mound. The question is that quick burst to field a bunt, to cover first base. It's the final piece. Jimmy Endersby is the new Houston pitcher with 2 on and 1 out, facing Luke Voigt, who was hit by a pitch his first time and gets this one high in the air to center field. Corona settled under it, and that's the second out. So Endersby throws one pitch, gets Voigt to fly out, 2 away. Boy, with a big smile, as though he felt as though he just
Yes.
Jimmy Endersby pitched in AAA for Sugarland last year.
Sugarland Skeeters?
Skeeters.
Skeeters. What's a skeeter? Like
it's a mosquito, yeah. Which, you know, they tell stories about the first 3 years of the Houston franchise before they opened the Astrodome, and they played at open air Colt Stadium, which was actually right next door to where they built the Astrodome. They said the mosquitoes were the size of golf balls.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's known as the Houston municipal bird. In the dirt, put out of the dirt by Price, the first baseman, and they get the third out. 2-run homer by Alvarez makes it 3-0 New York. It's spring training, so we have our daily requisite picture of an alligator.
Alligators are scary, man, right?
Oh, just the way they loom.
Yes. I always see them on the golf course.
In the water hazards or on the grass?
No, and usually in the water, but occasionally they creep up there.
Really?
Yeah.
Get more out of your mornings with the Pix 11 Morning News with Dan Manarino, Hazel Sanchez, meteorologist Byron Miranda, and Alex Lee with traffic. Weekdays starting at 4 a.m. Whether you're getting up or just coming in, right here on Pix 11, New York's very own.
I always marvel at the traffic report that comes on at 4:08 in the broadcast.
It's all clear. Smooth sailing.
I got it. I got that covered.
Yohan Ramirez on to pitch for the Mets in the fourth, and a chopper to third. Tough hop for Vientos, and he can't handle it. And Pedro Leon is aboard. Vientos got caught in between, and that's not a good place to be.
Had a lot of topspin on it, so he either had to come in and try to get it on the short hop. He opted for maybe the longer hop and just had too much spin on it, couldn't handle it.
It'll be an error charge to Vientos. So a leadoff base runner. This is Colin Price, who took over at first base in the last inning. He's a catcher by trade, playing some first base.
Sounds like maybe an injury or something, right? That he had to come in.
Chris Gittens hit one ball on the nose and then comes out of the game. Yohan Ramirez, now 28 years old. He's been in the big leagues with Seattle and Cleveland and Pittsburgh and the White Sox. Made a big change last year. He'd always been a four-seam fastball guy. Threw more two-seamers last year. His strikeout rate went down, but his ground ball rate went up. And he is yet another of the candidates to fill one of those spots at the end of the Mets bullpen.
Well, the mercurial nature of relievers, anyways, it's makes a lot of sense to have a lot of guys with experience in the big leagues, bring them in and see who can catch fire and have a big year.
Yeah. Well, talking to Carlos Mendoza this morning, the Mets manager, who was asked about the latest news on Kodai Senga, which is that he had a PRP injection in his shoulder in New York, and means Senga's not going to pick up a baseball for 3 weeks, and then they're going to have to start ramping him up. So basically, he's going to miss at least April, and then we'll see what happens from there. But we had talked yesterday about the fact that with Senga out, does that make it less likely that the Mets go to a six-man rotation? And I thought it was interesting the way Carlos answered the question. He said, probably, but that means if we go with a five-man that we need a multiple inning reliever. Now, Michael Tonkin, who was with the Braves last year, is one of those candidates, but he also mentioned Sean Reed Foley, who has done that in the past. He's a fly ball out to right, and Ramirez is there. And he also mentioned today's starter, Jose Butto, that if he doesn't make the team as a starting pitcher, there's a chance that he might be used at some point as a multiple inning reliever.
Yeah, that is an interesting way to look at it, right? He looked past the starting pitchers and got to, if we're going to start a guy every fifth day, you know, there's chances that one of them is not going to have his best effort.
There's Shea Whitcomb, who had a base hit his first time up, and he lines another one into left field. So Whitcomb, who had 35 home runs last year, is 2 for 2 in this game.
Well, this is what you're talking about, Gary, the two-seamer running in on Whitcomb. So that ball didn't really drop at all, just really had that horizontal run, and Whitcomb was able to handle it.
Don't forget, President of Baseball Operations David Stearns joins us in the bottom of the inning. You know, for years, we used to say general manager, which was easy to abbreviate. There's a soft grounder to third. Vientos gets the force. The relay by Sanchez, and they get the double play. It seems a little more awkward, though, to say Pobo as opposed to GM.
Has he been here long enough to know about the elevator?
We'll see if he gets here in time. We go to the bottom of the fourth inning at Port St. Lucie. The Mets leading the Astros 3-0, and we are so pleased to welcome into the booth Mets President of Baseball Operations, David Stearns. David, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So you've been on the job, what, about 5 months now? Tell us about the overall feel about what you've done over those 5 months.
I think at the front end of any of these jobs, what you're really trying to do is get to know your organization. These are massive operations with really 300 people in baseball operations alone, not even counting the business side. So you're trying to get to know all the people, understand what we do well, understand where there are areas where maybe I can offer some perspective and help us move forward. And so it felt good that we've been able to get a good start at that.
Has there been a moment in these 5 months, after spending nearly a decade in Milwaukee, where you said, wow, this is different having a job here with the Mets as opposed to with the Brewers?
Yeah, it's almost every day. This is a fundamentally different job. And yes, the subject matter is still baseball. What I'm responsible for is more or less still the same thing, but the different aspects of the job, there's clearly more media. There's more non-baseball stuff. It's a much bigger front office. All of those things, I think, are very different. You feel it every day. You grow into it. You adjust, learn things every day. And so now, 5 months into it, I certainly feel more accustomed to it than maybe I did on day one.
You know, when you go around to acquire players, there's analytics, there's information that can help you get the players that you would like. But when you're trying to hire a manager, it's almost more old school now, where you still have to ask around and see the reputation, but also know that Carlos Mendoza has done just about every job that you could have in baseball. That works to his advantage, right?
It certainly did. And, you know, Mendy is not a guy that snuck up on the baseball universe. I think people around baseball and front offices and certainly other coaches have known who Carlos has been for a long time. He's been very well respected, whether it's his time in winter ball, his time at WBC, certainly his time as the bench coach for the Yankees. And so when I came in and started the managerial search, he was a name that was on the list from day one, and it was just a matter of going through the process, getting to know him. And I think we both felt from our first conversation, then our first Zoom, then our first in-person meeting, that we enjoyed the conversation. And that's so much a part of that relationship between a manager and a front office or a head of baseball operations. Is you just got to enjoy talking to each other and talking about the game and working through problems. And I think we both felt that.
Fly ball by Sanchez over toward the right field corner. That's going to stay in the park. So that encompasses the human side of what you need to do as a president of baseball operations beyond the analytics. What about the idea of acquiring players with an eye toward guys who can handle what's different about New York? How do you go about figuring that part out?
I don't think there's any science to that. I think it is trying to learn as much about the player's personality as you possibly can. Have they played in New York previously? That's obviously an indicator. If they haven't played in New York, have they played in other big markets that might be somewhat like New York, whether that's Boston, Philly, maybe Chicago? And if you can't check either of those boxes, you do what you can to understand who the player is. Have they performed in big games? Have they played in the postseason? Have they played when the lights have been bright? Because the lights are bright every single night in New York, and you have to be able to handle it. And look, I don't think we're going to get that aspect of this right all the time. And I think I understand that that's an added variable in choosing players for a roster that's really tough to know before you put the player on the team.
You made one big free agent pursuit this offseason, and came up short on Yamamoto. And then you've made the medium to small moves since then. Can you explain to the fan base that wants the splashier moves why that's been your strategy?
Absolutely. And I love the splashy moves too. It's exciting to make those types of acquisitions. This is an organization that's done it in the past. We're going to do it again. Steve is very committed to supporting this team in any way possible. I think we have to do it when the time is right for the right player. And there was an instance in this year where we made a very significant run at a premium free agent in Yamamoto. Clearly, we weren't able to get him because we thought that was the right player in the right situation. And I think going forward, there are going to be other right players in the right situation. And some of them we're going to be able to reel in and bring in, and others are going to choose other destinations as well. And that's part of it. But that we're in a situation where we can go toe-to-toe with every other team in baseball from a financial perspective is a huge advantage. And we're going to take advantage of that when the time is right for the right players.
There have been a lot of trends in baseball in terms of roster composition in recent years since you've been in charge in a franchise. And if you can stick around to the top of the fifth.
Sounds good.
I'll get that question in and we'll complete the thought. David Stern's with us. He'll be with us when we come back to the fifth. It's Over Park in Port St. Lucie with the Mets of a 3-0 lead after 4, and we're chatting with Mets President of Baseball Operations, David Stearns. So the trends in roster composition, right, over the last decade, youth, athletic ability, depth, versatility. How have all of those trends, which ones are the most important, and how have they affected the way you put together your team?
So I think what I like to keep in mind is that the trends are constantly evolving. And if we try to chase the trends that existed 5 years ago, 10 years ago, it's probably not exactly what we should be doing today. I do think the rule changes we've seen in baseball over the last couple of years have accentuated the need for athletic players, have accentuated the need for good defenders. MLB, for a variety of reasons, I think is committed to creating a game where there is more ball in play, which I personally think is a good thing.
Yeah.
And when there is more ball in play, there's going to be a need for defense, athleticism, dynamic play. And so I do think that trend in particular is going to continue, is going to accelerate, inform some of the decisions we made over the offseason in terms of the type of players to bring in here. And I do think that is going to be an increasingly important part of how to construct rosters and support your team.
How important do you think culture of an organization, culture of your team, and what kind of decisions can you make to help that along?
Yeah, incredibly important. Also impossible to quantify. So trying to explain like an ROI on organizational culture, not easy, but it absolutely starts with ownership, and it starts with the alignment from ownership through the front office to the field staff, and ultimately through to your players. And if we look at any of the, I think what we would consider elite organizations in sports, the sports that have decades worth of success, they have that alignment. And I think of the San Antonio Spurs. I think of the New England Patriots for a long time, where you have that alignment from ownership through the front office, coaching staff, and there becomes this organizational identity that players know when they come to the New York Mets or when they went to the New England Patriots or the San Antonio Spurs, that there's a certain level of expectation and standard that's required.
So let's talk a little bit about what the decisions that need to be made this spring, right? You're in an interesting position where you've got competitors for the back end of your rotation who are somewhat major league experienced, and then you have another wave of pitchers who are almost major league ready, like Christian Scott and Mike Vassell and Dominic Hamill, etc. And then also you've got a third base battle with Beatty and Vientos. So Wendell's part of that mix. But then again, you've got another wave of players coming with Acuna and Williams and Gilbert. How do you see all that playing out and transitioning, not only in spring training, but as this season goes along?
So I think, first of all, it's good to have those waves, right? Healthy organizations have waves of talent coming. Rather than just spots of prospect talent coming. You do need waves. And our goal is going to be to continue those waves throughout all levels of our minor league system. In terms of those specific battles, we want to do right by the players and not impact their development through our system. So if we believe a player needs more time in AA, needs more time in AAA, we're not going to allow the immediate term needs of a major league team to dictate that player's development. In the long term for both that player and the organization, in my opinion, that's not the right thing to do. We're fortunate, I believe, at the major league level where we've got guys who can step in and be quality contributors in the roles you just mentioned. So for the back end of the rotation,
back pick by Alvarez, and he gets the out at first base to end the inning. Finish your thought, please.
Back into the rotation with guys like McGill, Budo, who threw the ball well today, Lucchesi. I think we have guys with major league experience who can step in and take that role.
David, thank you so much. You provide great insight.
Appreciate it.
We look forward to doing this a lot more as the season goes
Sounds
along.
good. Thank you, Gary.
All right.
Thanks,
David Stearns, Mets President of Baseball Operations. We go to the bottom of the fifth inning. We thank David Stearns for a lot of insight. What did I tell you yesterday? Talks like a human being.
He's a brilliant dude. The only issue I have is that I was so into what he was talking about, I have no idea what's going on in the game.
Well, I didn't notice that it was Kevin Parada who had come in to catch, who made that back pick to end the inning. So I'll give credit where credit is due there. Meanwhile, Jed Williams had come in to play shortstop, and he'll get the at-bat leading off in the bottom of the fifth. There's delay with the pitch come. Lamashtana. Jed Williams, one of the exciting players in spring, just had a phenomenal season last year. The Mets minor league player of the year. Unbelievable on base percentage. They're committed to playing him some at shortstop, but at some point they of course have to expose him to other spots. Second base, center field.
He's got the pants above the knee, like the wide receivers in the NFL.
Hunter Pence. No. Jed is only 20 years old, and he firmly believes that he's going to be in the big leagues before the end of this season, and I wouldn't bet against him.
Yeah.
He's 5'6" with swagger. Reminds you, and you hate to put this on him, but he reminds you a little bit of Dustin Pedroia.
Yeah. Oh, Petey. Nice call.
He's just got that air of self-confidence to him.
So we might see
that does not seem forced.
So we might see a laser show at some point.
And you can see the eye he has at the plate. Threw over 100 walks in the minor leagues last year, which is really hard to do. And yet he doesn't get cheated much on his swing.
It's the best part of spring training to me, especially in this job. Be able to see these young players and see how they develop from year to year.
And he goes down swinging against Rhett Kuba. Strike out to start the bottom of the fifth.
The Houston pitcher's name alone will make for a great box score tomorrow.
Belak? Blue Ball, Endersby, and Cuba. It's something. It's Brett Cuba. 24 years old, came out of Dallas Baptist University, same school that produced the Mets' Drew Smith. And that fastball misses to Ji-Man Choi, who's grounded into a double play and walked. I think the bottom line in everything that David Stern said during our inning with him, as Choi swings and misses 2-2, is it all adds up to the goal of sustainable excellence, which is really the hardest commodity to chase in this game.
But I don't think he's chasing anything. He's setting trends. He's not chasing trends, and that's there's a big difference.
No, I agree with that. What I'm talking about is the bottom line.
Yeah,
right.
Of course,
what comes out of the meat grinder, and at the end of the day, what you want is to be what the Astros have been.
Exactly. 7 straight times to the postseason. 7 straight times they played in the ALCS. Twice World Series champions.
Zenzo, the third baseman, throws out Choi, and they're 2 out, but the ball came out, and he's safe. And tagged by Price at first base, and as he tagged him, the ball shot free.
That was kind of an E = MC squared kind of event right there. You've got the mass of Ji-Man Choi, the acceleration, and trying to tag him produces an errant ball out of the glove.
I mean, Choi had basically given up on that. He was accepting the tag, but not enough squeeze of the glove.
Well, remember, you got a catcher playing first base who's probably using someone else's glove. Not a lot of experience.
And we have a pinch runner at first base. We will attempt to identify. It's J.T. Schwartz. Fly ball out to right center. Jose Iglesias flies out for the second out. Now Luke Voigt up for the third time.
Watching J.T. Schwartz take his lead out first, he reminds me of a player who took the same kind of lead with his right arm down. You remember Chris Carter?
Which one?
The Mets.
The Mets.
Chris Carter, left-handed hitter. Was with the Red Sox, I believe, to start his career, and then came over to the Mets.
He didn't play for the Mets for long, but he made enough of an impact that he was my son Zach's favorite player.
He was? There you go.
So, Chris, if you're listening, you've still got one big fan. On the outside corner for a strike to Voigt, and it's 1-2.
The other Chris Carter, of course, is the big home run hitting first baseman, Chris Carter.
For the Astros.
Played for, and the Brewers.
Yeah.
And the Yankees, I think, for a short time. Fishing.
Strike 3 called. Voigt is out on strikes. A couple of strikeouts in the inning for Cuba. And we go to the 6th. Are they biting? Sixth inning in Port St. Lucie, Mets with a 3-0 lead. Two of those runs coming on an opposite field home run by Francisco Alvarez in his second at bat of the spring. And Francisco joins us from the Mets dugout. Francisco, it's Gary and Ron up in the booth. Nice to get the first home run out of the way, huh?
Thank Gabi. Alan, he's translating.
Oh, we're getting translating?
Yeah, I think I can do it in English. Let's see.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's do it.
Of course you can.
You sound brilliant.
All right.
So we're on the air now, Francisco. How did it feel to hit your first home run of the spring?
Feel great, man. Very, very good. I feel very, very good on the play right now.
Let me ask you a question. Your English has come such a long way in such a short period of time. How did you learn English as well as you have?
I learning English with a teacher with the Mets in minor leagues, and I'm asking every time, like, to the coaches, to my teammates. I'm asking a lot to Beatty, to Vientos, like, hey, how I can say that, and they tell me, and I start the learn.
You know, you were talking before about being more consistent. When you work with your hitting coach, Eric Chavez, what are you working on that will make you more consistent?
Now we're working on follow my direction, like use the whole field, like don't try to put everything, like use the middle, use the right field. Like last year I was try to pull everything, but this year I want to use the whole field.
Last year you made such great strides defensively, especially in terms of framing. What's your priority defensively this year?
My priority, I think, call a better games and wins more games.
Winning more games, that's a good bottom line. I like that very much. And how do you go about that? How do you go about calling a better game?
I'm working on that, and I started like paying attention more to the swings and paying attention more like how our pitcher throw they pitches, like if they use same angle, or like how they can control better, like when I move away, when I move in, like I start to see that more.
Have you had a chance to catch Mike Vasil, Christian Scott, the young pitchers that are on the verge of making the big league club?
Not ready, but I heard they are very good.
You have talked a little bit about changing your stance on throws to second base. Tell us what you're going to do differently.
All right, my right knee is down, and when the pitch coming and he do the full work, I put my right foot like my knee. I stand up a little bit, and I do the move.
So you're being down on your knee, but you get up in the middle of when you see the runner going?
Yeah.
Huh. That sounds hard to do. How's it coming?
I'm working on it.
That's great.
Who was your favorite catcher, your hero as a catcher when you were young?
Henry Blanco.
Oh,
Hank
You know
White.
Henry?
Of course. He was with the Mets.
Yeah, I know that.
Why was he your guy?
Because he was a Caracas catcher in Winterbo, and I was a Caracas fan when I'm younger.
Mm-hmm.
have you guys developed, I saw last year you and Vientos and Beatty formed a great friendship. Do you feel like that will continue and the young guys kind of pulling for each other?
I think yes, that one continue, because like I feel they are like my brothers, and I love Mark and Beatty.
Last year, you got a chance to catch a couple of future Hall of Famers with Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander. And Max especially had a lot of high praise for you. How much did that experience mean for you?
I think a lot. Like they teach me a lot. They give me more confidence behind the play. They always talk to me. Even if they don't pitch in the day, they ask me, and we're talking about the game. I'm talking a little bit more with Max. I have a little bit more comfort with him, and he teach me a lot, really.
When you came into the game today with Jose Butto, you guys threw a lot of pitches inside to the right-hand hitters. Is that something that Jose is working on?
Yeah, he's working in a new sinker now, and the sinker look pretty good, and we using sinker today. He wanna use a lot today. I talked with him yesterday, and he told me he wanna use the sinker a lot, and we did it.
Francisco, we are so proud of you for doing these interviews in English. You should be very proud of yourself too. It's fantastic. We are so appreciative, and congratulations.
Thank you, man. Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, Francisco Alvarez. We'll talk to you soon. Good luck on a great season. I think that's marvelous.
Unbelievable. Just, you're right. Proud is the word. Like as parents, just to see, I don't know, everything about him is all about trying to max out the best version of himself, and that's all you want. That's all you can ask of a ball player.
He seems indefatigable.
Yeah.
And I know he wore down a little bit last year from playing so much, but his work ethic never wavered as Tyler J strikes out Cam Fisher for the first out of the sixth.
Well, we talked about a few things with David Stearns about that. There's no science to it. It's hard to measure it. Energy that he brings to each and every game is just so important, I think, in today's game.
And it's infectious.
Yes.
When you have a guy who is, one of the top young players in the game as the Mets turn 2 to end the inning, everybody around him sees that. And I think it infuses energy into his teammates as well. Middle of the sixth, Mets up 3-0. Be part of the excitement at Citi Field this season. Mets 2024 single game tickets are on sale now. Get yours today at Mets.com/tickets. Bottom of the sixth, and Ben Gamel is up for the third time, facing right-hander Rhett Kuba. Gamel has been up twice and hit the ball on the ground both times. Let's see if we can go over the Astros defense. In case any of their parents are watching, they'll know that their kids are in the game. Colin Price is playing first base. Chase Jaworski.
What?
Chase Jaworski is playing second.
Call him Jaws.
Alberto Hernandez is at short. 2-2 to Gamel. Wainer Luciano is playing third. Cam Fisher in left.
Okay.
Justin Durden in center, and Quincy Hamilton is in right as Gamel goes down on strikes. Third strikeout for Cuba, and Miguel Palma is doing the catching.
They've got a lot of players here for. Did you say they had a split squad
they have a
game
split
today?
Squad game, yes. So you figure they would have not had enough, but it seems as though there are a lot of minor league additions.
All right.
On the field. I mean, they started out basically with a minor league starting lineup, and now they've gone a little deeper into the organization. Hello. Make sure to reapply sunscreen. Grounded out to the left side, and that's DeZenzo. Slings it over to first to retire Ryan Bannon for the second out. So 2-1. Now Kevin Parada will bat for the first time.
I like this.
Mets first round draft pick.
All the Mets fans that come down here have a chance to get on the screen. Some screen time. That's great.
The way I look at it is that everybody wants to get on TV until you're in TV.
That is nothing has been better said than that. How many games are you doing? One more?
No,
two more. Okay.
Tuesday and Wednesday.
Okay, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Those are the Murph games.
Oh, I'm so excited. It's going to be great.
Now you're doing Tuesday with me and Murph.
Yeah, now you and I were talking. What should we do with the Murph? In the middle, I think we have to put him in the middle.
He'd be like a tennis match for him. We'll go back and forth. I don't know. We'll have to give that some thought.
I'm just going to let him talk.
You know what David said? He said you might have to turn his mic off.
That was a good statement. What could I say?
Partly cloudy skies, or is that mostly cloudy? Where's the borderline between partly cloudy and mostly cloudy?
Yeah, I don't know that one.
And what's the difference between partly sunny, mostly sunny, and mainly sunny?
Mainly sunny.
I saw that one for the first time the other day. Mainly sunny.
I think partly sunny down here is a bad day. Back in Connecticut, where you and I live, it's a beautiful day.
It's all a matter of perspective, is
right.
what you're saying. Tyler Jay working a second inning of relief for New York. Facing Colin Price. Jay walked his first batter in the sixth, erased him on a double play. So we should tell you who's in the field for the Mets now, since we told you who was in the field for the Astros. J.T. Schwartz is playing first base. Jose Iglesias is playing second. Jet Williams is at short. Rylan Bannon is at third. Carlos Cortez is in left. Rylan Thomas is in center. Stanley Consuegra is in right. Kevin Parada is catching. Tyler Jay on the mound. Bounces that breaking ball right into the foot of Price. 1-2.
Price thought he was hit, but he is not going to argue it because he wants to take an at-bat.
Tyler Jay, University of Illinois product, fires a fastball for strike three. So there's the second strikeout for Jay. 2 out in the inning.
You know, Gary, it's funny how you mentioned first the fastball, good fastball up in the zone. The new defense, because, you know, once we get to the regular season, you and I know just about everyone on every roster, so we can know them just by, you don't even have to see your number. You can see them by the way they walk, the way they run, their body type, all of that stuff. Right?
Well, now, reading names and numbers isn't quite as easy as it used to be either. 1-1 to Chase Jaworski in relation to Ron. Got a Y at the end instead of an I.
Good breaking ball there. You know, a question I didn't get to ask David Stearns because we were talking about so many big questions concerning the Mets was, I wonder what happens after a game like yesterday that you and I did, that Nate Lavender was so good. Like, what happens in that room when they go and talk about the game and start to go, boy, that Lavender, he's something. We're going to have to see a lot more of him, you know?
I think they already knew that he was good as Jay strikes out Jaworski 2 out. But he certainly opened eyes just in the fact that he was able to throw that fastball repeatedly at not a great velocity and get bad-looking swings.
He said it great after the game. He was talking about, okay, maybe I don't throw 92, 95, or 96, but I throw it's well-intentioned, and I'm aggressive, and I throw it with conviction.
He said a 92-mile-an-hour fastball thrown without conviction is not as good as a 92-mile-an-hour fastball thrown with conviction.
Amen. He is 100% right.
Now, can you explain that?
Yes, I can. Think about pitching this way. Catcher can put a myriad of signs down, but let's say that you are a 2-pitch pitcher and you want to throw a curveball, but the catcher puts down a fastball. You really want that curveball, and you decide, because the catcher has put down the fastball as this ball hits the center field, that you're going to throw that fastball instead of the curveball. The fastball ends up not being as good because you had conviction for the curveball, no conviction for the fastball.
I still don't understand, but we'll talk more about it when we come back. Well, the Owls of Florida Atlantic have gotten a lot of attention because of their basketball program, but they got a pretty neat baseball program as well. 25 straight winning seasons. Coach John McCormick now in his 15th year. They're in action today against Towson after playing a 3-game series with one of the top teams in the country, Vanderbilt, to start the season.
30,000 students established in 1964, so 60 years on educating mostly young Floridians. Pretty cool.
Stanley Consuegra leads off in the bottom of the 7th against right-hander Ryan Gusto.
Keep it going. Keep the names coming. A couple of alumni from FAU. Carrot Top, did you know that?
No.
Is an FAU alumnus. And Don Brewer, who was the founder and the drummer of Grand Funk Railroad, which is pretty cool.
Is he funny? Because Carrot Top isn't.
I mean, that's harsh.
Sorry. It's tough business.
It is a tough business.
I mean, you're going to go into stand-up, you better be able to deal with some hecklers.
Yeah, but you're a wordsmith. You could have come up with something a little bit, that his comedy is not your kind of comedy.
Yeah, but that wouldn't be true. I try and speak the truth on this broadcast. Occasionally they get us in hot water. 1-2 to Consuegra. And he takes strike 3 called. So Ryan goes with the Gusto. And he's got himself a strikeout. What was that? Schlitz. Go for the Gusto?
That's right. Schlitz. That was a big beer in Massachusetts, certainly.
Yeah. I was more familiar with Schmitz.
Schmitz?
Those were the little stubby bottles.
Oh,
Schmitz
yeah.
from Philadelphia.
I was thinking about that. Zach Short played shortstop, started for the Mets today. And I had a roommate from that area. And his big drink in college was Genesee Cream-Aid.
Yeah, of course. Jenny Cream.
That was kind of a stubby bottle as well.
Yep. This is Ryland Thomas. And this is where it gets a little confusing in spring training. Tyrone Taylor started the game in center field, and he wears number 15. And now Ryland Thomas is playing center field, and he wears number 15. Over from minor league camp. And he goes down swinging, and so Gusto has a couple strikeouts to start his stint.
I mean, that's got to be the first thing you look at if you're in minor league camp, right? You go to the board, and they have all the practice, what field you're going to be on, and what minor leaguers have to go over to the big field today to play in the game. Has to be.
You were never in minor league camp, were you?
No. Thank goodness.
It was Jed Williams. I mean, it's a different world over there.
The only time I was on my way to minor league camp was my first year in a big league camp was with the Texas Rangers. So I pitch in spring training. I have a very good spring training. 21 years old. Don Zimmer calls me in his office one of the last few days. Said, listen, you're going to pitch in Oklahoma City, AAA. You're not going to open up with the big club. You're going to go to AAA. You're going to start 3 times. On April 27th, you're going to pitch against the Twins in Texas. I'm driving at a Datsun 280Z T-Roof. It was one of the greatest cars ever. I'm driving from Pompano Beach, which is the big league camp, to Plant City, which is what, the strawberry capital of the world or something like that?
Yes, it is.
So I'm driving to Plant City. That takes about 4 hours. Took me 3 because I was so excited.
We know your foot.
I get to the hotel. The red light is on. For you older folks, you know what that means. I've got a message. 3 hours earlier, I had been told that I'm going to go to the big leagues with Texas Rangers. The message was that I'd just been traded to the Mets on April Fool's Day. How baseball, I mean, how your life can change in a matter of seconds.
Did it cross your mind that it might be an April Fool's joke?
100%, especially when Lou Gorman is the one who I first talked to, and he was with the Mets. And Lou Gorman I had known as a schoolboy playing in Massachusetts. He was a Rhode Island kind of Mr. Rhode Island as far as baseball. And when I saw the message, I thought he just wanted to say hello. And I said, "Hello, Lou, how are you doing?" He goes, "You're now with the Metropolitans." I had no idea what he was talking about, because I knew the Mets, but I didn't know the Mets were short for Metropolitans.
Jet Williams drew a walk. Let's see if he tries to steal one. He's got a huge lead. He takes off. And the throw goes into center field, and Williams will stay put at second base. Jet was bound and determined from the time he reached first base that he was going to try and steal, and got a huge jump. And he's got the bag.
I know. Apologize for my long-windedness, but boy, that was fun watching him run. He had a huge lead at first base. I mean, Ricky Henderson kind of lead.
Now, my other question about the phone call, the message you got from Lou Gorman is, when he left the message, did he say it twice?
Yeah. He said, "Good, good."
That was Lou Gorman's nickname, was Good Good.
He was such a sweet, sweet man.
He would always repeat himself.
And then I heard from the Rangers, my team, second, not first. I heard from the Mets first, and then Joe Klein, who someone told me later had to go find a phone because when he found out that had been traded, he threw the old one against the wall. Right? He wasn't in charge of the trade.
He was the GM, and he did not make the trade?
He was superseded by the president of the baseball team. So he was very angry. Because not only, I mean, I was part of the trade. No one knew what I was going to be. But Walt Terrell was part of the trade. He just won 16 games in Double-A. Was the pitcher of the year.
Well, they got Lee Mazzilli in the trade.
Well, they needed a center fielder. I mean, that's how different baseball was than it is right now. I mean, it seems more corporate.
Well, everybody knows everybody.
Exactly.
You know?
I used to come.
And nobody knew anything.
I used to come to big league camp, and Mickey Rivers, who was unsigned, and that's why they needed a center fielder, would sit on his Cadillac in the parking lot to kind of protest that they had not signed him yet. And he had a Cadillac which had steer horns on the front. I'm not kidding.
It was the 80s, man.
They can't make this stuff up.
We were talking earlier today when we were having lunch about my favorite scouting word. My favorite scouting word is fringy.
Fringy.
Which is to say not quite good enough, not quite average.
You would hope in your entire lifetime that a scout would never use fringy for mentioning your name.
I was going to say Mickey Rivers had a fringy arm. To the 8th, 3-0. Some looks at spring training. Chance for the fans to get up close and personal with their heroes, to stand in line and do some drills, to renew acquaintances with old and new friends. 8th inning in Port St. Lucie, and Paul Gervais comes on to do the pitching for New York. Gervais pitched for Brooklyn and Binghamton last year, pitched to a 2.05 ERA across 38 appearances. That'll get your attention. And he overthrew that fastball to Miguel Palma. 2-0.
Some nerves here for the young Gervais. Yeah, look at those numbers. 96 strikeouts in 57 innings.
And again, he overthrows it. How did you calm yourself down when you got into these situations as a young player?
Boy, it's hard, Gary. I'm telling you, you try to take all that adrenaline you have and try to fire it right through the catcher.
You can see badly for ball 4.
You can see he missed 4 straight pitches in the same spot. That's just nerves, overthrowing, all of those things. And you try to remind yourself that it's pitching, not throwing, that gets you through the day.
Watch MLB.tv and stream over 250 spring training games and every out-of-market game live or on demand. Blackout and other restrictions apply. Visit MLB.tv for details. Now Justin Durden bats for the first time. Gervais still trying to find the strike zone.
It's a good time for the catcher or someone to come out and just calm him down. This will be the one time you'd want to do the Maddox. Put your hand on his shoulder. Just say, hey, listen, this is what you always dreamed about. Big league mound, big league spring training game. Go right at him. That's what Iglesias just said. Go right after him.
And he turned his shoulders, so you're opening too soon. That's why you're missing, blowing away. And Jose Iglesias has seen a lot of pitchers over his time.
That's right.
You know, if you're Iglesias, you can say, hey, let him hit it. I'll take care of the rest.
Or he has a 4:15 tee time for 9 holes later today.
Might also add that with the shadow crossing home plate, pitchers have an advantage anyway if you can throw the ball in the strike zone. But still elusive for Gervais, and he's thrown 7 straight balls to start his stint. And finally a strike.
There we go.
See if that breaks the seal. So back-to-back walks, and the Astros have the first 2 men on in the 8th.
Tell a guy, a young pitcher, is nervous by the way they walk around the mound. He did 2 or 3 circles and ended up in the same place. It was like he was kind of lost out there.
Well, this is one of 2 players, and I'm not sure which one, because they have 2 number 91s on their roster. They've got Tyler Whitaker and Garrett Guillemette, both of whom are number 91, and there's no name on the player's back. So what do you think? Well, the board says Guillemette, so perhaps there's some intelligence from Astros PR pointing us in the right direction, or maybe not. Let's see, Guillemette is listed as a right-hand batter. So that works in his favor.
You know what's going to happen. He's struggling with his control. He's going to throw a strike here. It's going to be hit on the ground, and they'll turn 2.
Maybe 3.
Right?
Reminds me of the scene in the movie of The Odd Couple, where Felix calls Oscar on the phone in the press box, and Mets are in trouble and playing the Pirates. And Oscar said, they're going to lose. And the guy next to him in the press box says, haven't you heard of a triple play? And he gets on the phone with Felix, and he misses the triple play. This appears to be Guillemette because Tyler Whitaker, the other number 91, is 6'4", and this guy's not 6'4". So I think he wins by default. And there's a third straight walk issued by Gervais. So Jeremy Hefner is going to pay him a visit, see if he can calm the young player's nerves.
The less serious you can be in this circumstance, the better. You know, make a joke. Try to ease the tension because he's feeling it.
Well, this is not unheard of for Paul Gervais, despite the great numbers last year in terms of ERA. He walked 6.6 per 9 innings, so clearly has had control issues in the past, and they have followed him here to spring training. It's just he hasn't had this many people watching.
That's right.
They're out on the berm watching him. Now Wiener Luciano comes up with the bases loaded and nobody out, tying runs on base in a 3-0 game. And Gervais continues to have the strike zone elude him.
Probably his last hitter here if he's not able to retire someone.
Here's a strike. It's a lonely feeling out there.
Oh, man, I've been there before. You don't feel like you could throw a strike. And what you do is you go back to all the basics that you learned as a kid. I didn't pitch that much as a kid, but just, okay, keep your front shoulder closed. Make sure you push off. Throw it down the middle. All those things, which sometimes makes it even worse.
And to a degree, it's harder now than it probably was then, because you can at least go off the back of the mound, take a deep breath, rub up the baseball, try and calm yourself down. With the pitch clock, you have no opportunity to slow things down. Now he's 2-2 on Luciano. And it's hit on the ground, a chance for two. The turn by Iglesias, and they get the double play. A run comes in, but two well-earned outs for Paul Gervais. It's now a 3-1 game, 2 out in the inning.
3 double plays by the Mets today around the horn, 5-4-3.
So now 2 out and a runner at third, and here's Cam Fisher, who struck out his first time up. Mets will be in West Palm tomorrow to take on the Nationals. And then they're back here in Port St. Lucie on Tuesday, which will be our next broadcast on SNY. And I think Adrian Hauser is scheduled to pitch that game for the Mets.
Oh, that's good.
That'll be his first time out. Former Brewers sinker baller. Say this about the Mets starting staff this year. They are very personable as a group. I mean, Sean Manaea could not be
He's great.
A friendlier dude. Hauser, Severino.
Quintana,
well, he was here last year.
Yeah, but he's a great guy.
Fisher pops one foul. Back off the clamshell roof. And into the seats below.
Well, the Hall of Famers sometimes tend to be less approachable, except can't say that about Scherzer and Verlander. They were awesome.
Scherzer is as approachable as they come. Just be prepared for a firm discussion on some topic when you get there. It's not just going to be exchanging pleasantries.
No, it's just you better bring it if you're going to go over and talk to Max.
That's right. Hi, guys. And now a full count to Fisher. $17 and 8 strikes. And strike 3 called. And so Gervais walks away unscathed. 3 straight walks to start the inning, and he gives up just the 1 run. 3-1 Mets in the 8th. The news that matters to you, with reporters who live where you live, not on the beach, and care about what you care about. Turn to the Pix 11 News at 10, weeknights with Corey Chambers, Shirley Chen, and Mr. G with the weather. That's Nat Sound Up Full.
Right?
Right? That's what they say in the business. That's very good. I hope they didn't flood the microphone.
Yeah, right.
You can just keep it going through the rest of the game.
They've had kind of a cold winter here, right? Or a cooler winter?
Rainy winter.
So I'm thinking the ocean water is going to be a little chilly.
Well, it's always chilly early in the season.
Yeah.
Of course, it depends where on the coast you go.
Yeah.
If you go over here, due east to Hutchinson Island, it's cold. If you go down toward Palm Beach, it's warm.
Yeah, and if you get all the way down to Miami, of course, it's beautiful. The temperature, anyway.
Jose Iglesias shoots one the other way, and he's got himself a base hit. So Iglesias, in his second turn at bat, has an opposite field single. The Mets have the leadoff man on in the 8th.
Well, it looked like he was trying to go to right field the entire way. Fastball down the middle, drives it into right field for a base hit. Iglesias, when he first came up to the big leagues, he was all glove, could kind of knock the bat out of his hands. No longer.
It's an interesting case, Ronnie. I mean, there's a ground ball on the right side. They get the out at second, and the double play. 2 men down. Allen grounding into a 4-6-3 double play. You know, Joey Wendell signed a major league contract and is probably going to be the backup infielder for this team. But, I mean, Iglesias, it gives you a glow that you're just not going to find anywhere else. And some offense. But he's a non-roster player, which makes it more difficult for him to make the team out of spring training. But it's a nice piece of insurance to have. This is Carlos Cortez, who came off the bench and had 2 hits yesterday.
He is one of those players that if he doesn't make the Mets roster, what invariably happens in spring training is the team will end up in the middle of March losing their starting shortstop or second baseman and have to look for someone to fill that hole for the month of April. And he would be a perfect candidate for that.
Sometimes that happens, or sometimes Gavin Lux gets hurt and they just move Mookie Betts to second base.
There you go.
That worked out fine. Mets are done in the bottom of the 8th. 3 more outs to get. Mets looking for their first win of the spring, up 3-1. Ninth inning in Port St. Lucie, Mets with a 3-1 lead. And 22-year-old Junior Santos will come on to pitch. Try and nail down the Mets' first win of the spring. Quincy Hamilton takes one well out of the strike zone for ball 1. Santos pitched at Double-A Binghamton last year. 28 appearances, 15 starts. 5.94 ERA.
Another guy that runs the ball, kind of a two-seam guy. Seeing more and more of those pitchers.
And there was a time that the two-seamer fell out of fashion. The four-seamer was everybody's bread and butter.
You couldn't make the club unless you threw high spin rate four-seamer.
Well, it was like David Stern said when we had him on earlier. We're trying not to chase trends. We're trying to anticipate the next trend and create it ourselves.
Well, he said, he was talking about waves, not just that one big prospect. Waves of prospects. So you just have an an endless supply of talented athletic players that can help you each and every year.
Like the Orioles are doing right now.
That's right.
They just have an overload of guys who can play and have to figure out how to deploy all of those resources.
Cincinnati Reds are a bit like that as well.
Well, think about the fact that the Orioles had the best rookie in the American League last year playing shortstop, and they've got the best shortstop prospect in the American League ready to play in the big leagues.
That's right. Who's going to move that player to a different position?
I don't know. Is that the way it's going to go, or is Jackson Holliday going to start out at second base?
Yeah, I mean, there has been questions about his arm strength, to play that position at short.
I mean, Gunnar Henderson's a big guy who just eats up ground at shortstop.
He does.
There's Colin Price.
Gary, you did the games in Baltimore last year, right?
Yep.
I mean, I don't think I was impressed more by any other team than the way they turn singles into doubles. Their defense, especially their third baseman, Urias.
Well, they also got unexpected contributions from a guy like Ryan O'Hearn.
That's right.
Who had been kind of a washout in Kansas City and became a star in Baltimore. The funny thing is that, everybody was raving about Adley Rutschman, and he's a good player. But there are a lot of other good young catchers in baseball. And that's been one of the things that's really caught my eye the last few years is the number of two-way, effective, budding young star catchers there are in the big league. We talked about Patrick Bailey earlier, obviously Francisco Alvarez, Cal Raleigh in Seattle.
I got to see one close up in the postseason, Gabriel Moreno.
Right. I mean, there's just so many of them now all of a sudden. But to me, for the Orioles, it's that infield talent that really stands out. 2-2 coming. That's just off the corner in full count. And adding Corbin Burns to that rotation is a nice addition.
Yeah, he pitched yesterday, only an inning, but a couple of strikeouts. He's top-notch.
And they needed him because they've had some injury issues with their rotation. But that's strike three. Good looking breaking ball by Santos to strike out Price for the first out of the ninth. I mean, that's what you do, right? You have a need and you have a deep farm system. You're able to deal from strength.
And they signed Craig Kimbrell to kind of hold the fort for a few months until they get Bautista back.
Right. There's Jaworski. Chase Jaworski is just 19 years old, playing in big league exhibition games. That's how Jed Williams out of shortstop, just 20 years old. They grow up fast. I mean, we're now used to having players who were born in this century make it to the big leagues. Before long, we'll have players from 2010.
That's right.
He has a good fastball by Santos, and he's ahead on Jaworski 1-2.
You know when it's really sobering, Gary, is when you're on your computer or iPad and you're applying for something and you have your birth date, so you put your monitor on, and the scrolling takes forever. It's like, what?
Swing and a miss. And Santos impressively with back-to-back strikeouts. And the Astros are down to their final out.
He's got a beautiful arm action. Nice long arm action. Lots of movement on his pitches.
This is a guy you haven't seen on any prospect list. Just 22 years old. Numbers weren't pretty last year in single A and double A, but he liked the arm. There's Alberto Hernandez. And he takes the slider for a strike. And Hernandez fouls it back, and the Astros are down to their last strike. Mets are on the road tomorrow to West Palm Beach, where they play the Nationals. Back here on Tuesday for our next broadcast on SNY. And a grounder past the mound, behind the bag, grabbed by Williams, throws him out. And the Mets have their first win of the spring. Junior Santos, after a leadoff walk, sets down the Astros in the ninth. Francisco Alvarez highlights the offense with a 2-run homer. And the Mets defeat the Astros to give Carlos Mendoza his first unofficial win as Mets manager, 3-1.
Alvarez with the home run, like you said, but the A+ interview in English, and it was just, it's nice to get that first win under your belt. It doesn't matter if it's a spring training game for a new skipper.
Jose Butto started, went 2 scoreless innings in his bid to become a member of the rotation. That's 1-1 on the spring as they beat the Astros 3-1. More coming up from Port St. Lucie in just a moment.